Today we're setting off in search of Atlantis, a mysterious, lost continent that is said to have housed a very ancient civilization, the Atlanteans. According to some sources, it was submerged thousands of years ago. Since then, many adventurers have tried to locate Atlantis. Some have devoted their entire lives to it. So, Atlantis myth or reality? Hold your breath. Let's dive into the past. On April 20th, 1925, Percy Fawcett, a former British Army officer, left the city of Cuiabá in Brazil, heading for the Amazon rainforest. He was accompanied by his son Jack and a friend of his, Raleigh Rimmel. They were in search of the remains of a lost city in the heart of the jungle. Fawcett was convinced it held traces of a colony founded by survivors of Atlantis. This was an island continent that supposedly vanished thousands of years ago. We'll return to this in a few minutes. Percy Fawcett knew the Amazon well. In 20 years, he had already led 7 expeditions for the Royal Geographical Society of London. His first mission was to map the borders between Brazil and Bolivia, 2 rival countries disputing the rubber trade. During his expeditions, he heard intriguing rumors about a lost city deep in the Amazon jungle. Intrigued, Percy Fawcett began to read everything he could on the subject. One day, in the archives of the National Library of Rio de Janeiro, he stumbled upon a book with an enigmatic title, Manuscript 512. It was written in the 17th century by Portuguese adventurers, claiming to have discovered a fabulous city in the Brazilian region of Mato Grosso. Fawcett was now certain this city truly existed, and he named it the City of Z. He was also convinced it was built by the oldest civilization in human history, the Atlanteans, survivors of Atlantis. In 1925, he set out to find it. He also hoped to gather clues to locate this continent. His expedition sparked unprecedented enthusiasm in England, but unfortunately, the 3 men never returned. They vanished without a trace. Were they captured by local tribes or devoured by red ants? We will never know. Plato, the Greek philosopher, was the first to mention Atlantis 2,500 years ago. According to him, Atlantis, meaning the island of Atlas in Greek, was situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Historians believe this refers to the mountains bordering the Strait of Gibraltar. This vast island was therefore located somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Still according to Plato, Atlantis was created by the sea god Poseidon during the division of the world with his brother Zeus. Its inhabitants, the Atlanteans, are described as beings of superior intelligence who founded a highly advanced civilization. But around 9,600 BC, the island supposedly fell victim to a series of cataclysms that submerged it in a single day and night. Plato mentions violent earthquakes and floods. According to legend, Zeus himself was responsible. The supreme god punished the Atlanteans for becoming greedy, corrupt, and materialistic. This story was taken very seriously in antiquity. Then, it gradually faded into obscurity. Until the 15th century, when the myth suddenly resurfaced, it was the era of great maritime expeditions. One of these would reignite public interest in Atlantis, the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus in 1492. Some scholars wondered if this new world might be Atlantis. According to them, the island continent was not submerged, as Plato wrote, but simply separated from the European continent by that famous natural disaster. Between the 15th and 17th centuries, this theory found favor among many scholars. Convinced of Atlantis' existence, they began to scrutinize Plato's work to find proof of their theories. Several clues supported this theory. In his writings, Plato specified that the lost island was the size of a continent and located beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, which matches the New World across the Atlantic Ocean. This land was inhabited by humans not mentioned in the Bible, leading to the deduction that they were probably the descendants of the Atlanteans. Plato also said Atlantis was a land of abundance, with orichalcum, a rare mineral more precious than gold. This strangely resembles El Dorado, the mysterious city of gold sought in vain by Spanish conquistadors in the Amazon rainforest. However, the similarities between America and Atlantis end there. Indeed, according to Plato, this continent was circular, surrounded by navigable trenches, which does not match the New World discovered by Christopher Columbus. Furthermore, the Atlanteans' religious worship centered around Poseidon. However, the local populations had never heard of him. Therefore, America cannot be the lost continent, and once again, the myth collapses. It wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries that the world became fascinated by Atlantis again. This resurgence began with literature. In 1869, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was published. In this bestseller by Jules Verne, the famous Captain Nemo aboard his submarine, the Nautilus, seeks the sunken city in the depths of the Atlantic. Shortly after, an American named Ignatius Donnelly published an essay in 1882 titled Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. In this book, he suggested that many Atlanteans survived the destruction of Atlantis and dispersed around the world. This would explain why certain funeral rites, like mummification, are practiced by civilizations that never met, such as the Egyptians in Africa and the Incas in America. This somewhat eccentric theory had the merit of rekindling scientific interest in the Atlantis myth.